This right here is Max Pacioretty, a man who in his 20s would become the driving force to the Montreal Canadiens offense.
Being watched, Pacioretty going to the middle. He's got it. Can he do it? Yes, he can.
Pacioretty going to the net. Center scores! Max Pacioretty going to shoot, scores!
During a classic Habs-Bruins matchup, we would see a history-defining moment, which not only led to the NHL having to change the way NHL rinks are built, but it would create such an absurd domino effect that not only did it change hockey history, but this incident would lead to a riot. Back in 2007, the Montreal Canadiens would have one of the craziest draft days in league history because, get this, with their first pick, they would draft Ryan McDonagh. At pick number 22, they would draft Max Pacioretty. And in the second round, they would draft PK Subban. 3 stars, drafted with their first 3 picks. And this draft was franchise-altering, as it would propel the Habs into championship contention. And when 2 teams are in championship form, matching up against each other 6 to 8 times in the regular season, combined with arguably the greatest historic rivalry, lead to games blowing up into chaos. And in 2008, the Montreal Canadiens would not only embarrass the Boston Bruins on home ice, not only would they beat them 8 games in a row, but they would outscore Boston 39-16. And this intense rivalry, which would lead to each team sweeping each other back and forth in a rotation, and by 2011, we would see the peak of the Bruins-Habs rivalry. In the 2010-2011 season, after making a run to the conference finals, the Habs are primed to make a cup run. PK Subban had broken out as a top-pairing defenseman. Carey Price was establishing himself as a top goalie in the league, as the only issue this team had was goal scoring. Yes, Montreal was a top team at keeping the puck out of their net, but they would rank at the bottom for goals for. They would try to fix this issue by trading Ryan McDonagh for Scott Gomez, but Gomez was not the answer. However, the Habs had an ace up their sleeve, as Max Pacioretty that season was dominating the AHL with his goal-scoring ability, as my man was on a 50-goal pace, and as a result, he would get called up to the Big Boys Club, where he was instantly the Habs' top goal scorer. Not only was Patches on a 31-goal pace, but this man was torching the Bruins in all of their matchups, because as a rookie, he would score 4 goals, 6 points in his first 3 matchups against Boston. Max Pacioretty's breakout had the potential to push Montreal over the top after losing in the conference finals. And in their regular season series against Boston, Montreal would win in their first 3 matchups. And in Game 4, my goodness, in Game 4, we would see complete and utter chaos.
The building flows with emotion as the Bruins and Canadiens get set to go.
Right off the bat, tensions were getting high in this matchup. The Boston Bruins were routinely sending out Sean Thornton to bait the Habs into a fight. Halfway through the second, Brad Marchand would slewfoot to Roman Hamrlik.
Hamrlik wanted a penalty on this play. I don't see one.
I don't see one, my ass. All the ingredients for a chaotic game. Montreal should have had a power play. They were now down 2 goals. But in the second period, Montreal would bring the game back to even, with the second goal coming off a PK Subban bomb.
Subban's bomb scores!
And at this point, each team was mad and emotional, which would lead to a goal-scoring record in the NHL.
Pulls it into the pile, Lucic to Horton, to McQuaid, he scores! Darnay, Weber's drive scores!
Let's see 6 goals in a 5-minute span, and 8 goals in the second period. And this chaos would lead to line brawls.
Now we got a Donnybrook going!
Not to mention, we would see Carey Price and Tim Thomas chucking fists.
Price goes for the right, Thomas goes for the takedown.
You'll love to see it, which would lead to this classic clip of each team's penalty box loaded up with players. Also YouTube, nobody was injured in these clips. They are all trained professionals. Please don't demonetize. As this game, and get this, would end with 14 goals scored, 2 line brawls, a goalie fight, 198 penalty minutes, and 48 hits. As this game, whatever you look for in hockey, this game had it. From the complete and utter chaos in their prior matchup, you just knew something was gonna happen in their next game. 3 minutes into the game, we would see a fight, and in the dying moments of the second period, the Montreal Canadiens were up 4-0, where we would see the incident as Max Pacioretty was attempting to clear the zone. Zdeno Chara, who keep in mind is a 6'9", 260-pound mutant, would finish his check by riding Pacioretty into the boards.
Zone. Oh, Pacioretty is down face first as Chara angled him, and Pacioretty was lined up against the center glass.
Max Pacioretty would catch the corner of the glass, where he would receive a concussion and a fractured vertebrae. Now, and thank goodness, Max would make a miraculous recovery and was primed and ready to go in the next season. But this incident meant that Pacioretty was out for the season. When it comes to playoff hockey, we are talking about a different beast. Grit, defense, depth scoring, and mainly the importance of goaltending increases tenfold. And luckily for Montreal, they checked off all of the boxes. But so did Boston. And in round one, my goodness, the hockey gods would align, as we would see a Montreal-Boston first round matchup. And this made me think just how important are teams' regular season matchups when it comes to matching up in the first round. On this graphic, we have every Stanley Cup champion's regular season record from 2013 up until 2023 and their winning percentage against the teams they matched up against in the first round. And the proof is in the pudding. Every single team on this list, funny enough aside from Colorado, would beat, if not dominate, their round one competition in the regular season, as they would win on average 66% of their regular season matchups. Meaning, if they faced off 6 times in the regular season, the Stanley Cup winner would beat them 4 times in that 6-game series. And for the case of Montreal, leading up to the Pacioretty freak injury, the Montreal Canadiens had a 3-1 regular season against Boston. But it gets even more absurd. If we go back to 2010, Montreal had beaten the Bruins 8 times in their previous 10 matchups. If we take into account that aside from Max Pacioretty, that both teams didn't have significant roster changes. Montreal had beaten Boston in 80% of their prior matchups. Carey Price and Subban had another year of experience after nearly making it to the Cup final the year prior, and their main issue was goal scoring, which was fixed with the addition of Max Pacioretty, who had torched Boston in the regular season, meant that this playoff series was a lock for Montreal. Except the Max Pacioretty freak injury would prove to be the demise of the Montreal Canadiens. And this is no exaggeration. In this series, we would see one of the most tightly contested rivalry matchups we have ever seen. In Game 1, the Habs would shut out the Bruins. Granted, they would only score 2 goals. In Game 2, they would win 3-1. In Game 3, the Bees would win 4-2. In Game 4 and 5, they would lose by a single goal. In Game 6, they would win by a single goal. So we were seeing Game 7, the loser gets sent home packing. But Montreal Canadiens would once again lose by a single goal, because in this series, Boston would score 17 goals. However, Montreal would score 17 goals. This series was even across the board. Max Pacioretty would have been the X factor. He was the key player to bring Montreal to the Cup finals. Like seriously, everything we have gone over indicates this very point. And you can't tell me that this man with a proven track record wouldn't have come up big in a single one of their 1-goal losses. But they would lose, where the Boston Bruins would make it all the way to the Cup final. And you might be wondering, how did Montreal match up against Vancouver this season? They would sweep them in the regular season series. And this playoff series would not only cause a riot in Vancouver, but what happens when a Canadian fan base is pissed off and frustrated due to a lack of success? More specifically, when the fan base of the most historic franchise in league history is frustrated, well, they would also riot. And as always, thanks for watching.